Good evening. This is Rudy Giuliani, and I'm back with you on the Rudy Giuliani Show on Lindell TV. And today we're going to cover several topics, one of which is the view of a very, very distinguished Protestant minister and a Protestant academic as well, same person, on we've been hearing the view of Catholics very much on the Pope, but the Pope affects directly and indirectly religions of all kinds, and Christianity in particular. And it would be very, very interesting to listen to a learned man speak about the view of the papacy from the other tremendously large group of Christians, which would be generally called Protestants. But before that, this is Trump's 100-day celebration. So I'm just gonna do like a quick review, and then at 8:00 when we come back, we're gonna go into detail on these. So we're gonna kind of like tell you what they are, and then we're gonna go into detail. We're gonna take his accomplishments. Now, I hope the president doesn't get mad, but we're going to spend less time on his accomplishments because they're there and they're there for history. And we're going to have plenty of time to talk about them. And we've talked about them plenty of times. And they're not causing any misunderstanding. So I'm going to list, I have them here on my chart, so I'm going to just read them off to you. The first 100 days, of course, the border, right? The border is not just an accomplishment, it's a miracle. It's almost like if you watch the Ten Commandments during Easter and you saw Charlton Heston split the Red Sea. It's like splitting the Red Sea. We go from 12,000 a week to 70, right? and the prior president said it couldn't be done without an act of Congress. No act of Congress, we're down to virtually no illegal immigration. And if there is any, it's of the hidden variety, which we now have considerably more resources to deal with because we got this down to nothing. The next thing related to it is the expulsion of exceedingly dangerous people. Now, that has hit certain roadblocks, with the judges. But Mr. Holman, unless they catch him and put an injunction on him, you don't know how many he's gotten out of here. Wow. And I'm going to tell you another thing. You put Mr. Holman's face up on a board and you get about 1,000 illegals saying, well, we'll go out by ourselves. And that the court can't interfere with at all. You can voluntarily deport yourself. We have a tremendous number of voluntary deportations, not to mention the deterrent effect of the people not coming in and the CBP ones that we've reversed. So although it might seem as if the expulsion is on hold, it is not. There have been many, many more thrown out than being held up to be thrown out. Now, here's the problem. There are many, many more to find. The numbers are huge, huge, as President Trump used to say. And in the second show, starting at 8 on X, we'll give you a little feel for how that has to be approached. It's something that I've got to talk to Tom. We got to get Tom to talk about that more. I did when I interviewed him, and he's very, very eloquent on it. I'm talking about, there are three types of illegal aliens. The ones are the ones that come in and they get caught at the border. And under Biden, they were all uniformly brought into the United States. Under Trump, 70% of them are sent back right away. 30% of them are put in detention. So we have catch and throw out, catch and detain. He had catch and release. Then there's the group that we call gotaways. Gotaways are people that we may, 300 are coming in at the border. All of a sudden, 50 rush in, and there's a bus for them, and they take off. We never get to see them. But we do get to write down 50 came in. Well, we chase a group of them for 50 miles, and we lose them. We know another 20 have come in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Gotaways. Most cases, we don't have names. Most cases, we don't have identities. But we may, in some cases, have some identification. Tall man, short man, woman, child, license plate. That's another group. One group, 8 million. Second group, 2 million. Third group, only God knows. The third group is a group we never see. In that big giant border, most of which is not made up of border stations, most of which can be crossed with just a little bit of effort, particularly since defense was stopped and pushed back by Biden. And those are a academic exercise, and I'm going to give you the range there. That's a point. That's 50% of the known to 200% of the known, depending on the academics you're relying on. Most of which were Ivy League when they used to do. They stopped doing this with Biden, and so that's going to take us a bare minimum to another 4 million, maximum. Gosh almighty, maximum to another 25 or 30 million. I don't think it's that. My best working number, if you want just a single number, is 15 million. So when you see these major deportations, and they're going really well and fast, even with the injunctions, you don't realize the enormity of the problem. And the most dangerous part that frightens the living daylights out of me as a former law enforcement official, right? We don't know who the hell they are. Somebody says, how many terrorists in the United States? 20 years ago, I could give you the FBI estimate. The FBI estimate now is, how the hell do we know? That's a hell of an estimate, huh? So, great progress there. Great progress in investment in the United States. Trillions of dollars have been invested in the United States. And we don't even take account of it because we're fighting over tariffs. The tariffs make up about 8-10% of our economy. They could screw up the whole economy, and a couple of $1 trillion in investments could make it all go away. You see the investments pouring in. We're going to go into that in more detail. No one has really done a good job on categorizing that. They just come in every day, and I hope somebody's sitting there. We're going to find out. We're going to Washington Wednesday, Thursday, one of these days, as quickly as possible because it smells there. So we'll see what the investments are, and we'll take a look at the regulation reduction. That got a lot of attention in his first term, and it revived the economy like that, bam, before tax reduction. He's doing it now. I have the suspicion he's doing more of it. We're gonna go into that. The man has become the single biggest patron of women's rights America's ever had, because the phony feminists want women to box with men. They want women to swim with men. They want women to wrestle with men. They want women to play basketball with men. In other words, they want women's sports eliminated. And don't even argue with me about it. Because if you do, you're too stupid for me to argue with. So he has done unbelievable work on pushing back on that. He's done everything a president can do to restore the rights of women to have sports, which is, after all, what the whole civil rights laws were about in the first place, that have now been reversed by the fascists, because that's what they are. And then, of course, we will have to take a look at probably the biggest and strongest effort against anti-Semitism the United States has ever made. And really, even below that, fighting Marxism in the universities that has taken over, and fighting Marxism in Washington, which has taken over. So we'll get to that. And then we'll get to the three. All of those, I think, are great victories, which makes 100 days better than Roosevelt's, which, by the way, did shit because we had a bigger depression after Roosevelt went in office 7 years than we did after his first 100 days, that the suck-up press went, oh, wow, wow, wow. Well, we were in much worse shape until the war. The war solved the depression. Roosevelt gave us communism. So then we'll stick on the three that are controversial. Ukraine, 1. Iran, 2. Tariffs, 3. We'll do that at 8 o'clock. Now we have the privilege of having with us a truly great man, a young man, you'll see, for such greatness, but a minister of the gospel. He'll tell you his degrees and his background. I've been in his library numerous times. He encouraged me to read, although he's a Protestant minister, he encouraged me to read St. Augustine's Confessions, which I hadn't read since I was a child, and found it awe-inspiring. This is Reverend Jackson Lahmeyer, and he looks like he's all ready, as he always is. Reverend Lahmeyer, tell us your credentials so we know who we're talking to.
Well, it is so good to be on, and Mayor, you look great, you sound great. Thanks.
You do too.
Me. Thank you, sir. I am a Protestant pastor, so I know we're going to be talking about the Catholic Church, but I do have a interest because both of my degrees, my undergraduate and my master's, were in church history, and so it's kind of hard to study the history of the church without studying the history of the Roman Catholic Church, which makes up such a bulk of it, and the different popes throughout the centuries. And so that's my background. And the Confessions by Augustine. I don't think you can read anything better.
No, you can. And of course, that comes in, the 5th century or so, right? Before there was there was just really one, or maybe there were two churches, the Western Church and the Eastern Church, but they were together, right?
Together at that point, yeah.
So without getting into the history, which we may do later, because I want to talk to you several times during this conclave situation, how do you see, as a Protestant and a very, very devout, and is it fair to say you're conservative in viewpoint religiously?
Just a little. Oh, yeah.
I know you are politically, but I imagine religiously also, right? So the simplistic version of what's going on is that Francis was the first progressive pope, opened up church teaching, not dramatically, but somewhat, on blessing gay unions, but not going so far as to accept gay marriage. He has discouraged, in fact, at one point banned any of the old liturgy, which was so, to me personally, very, very valuable as a way of reaching God, because that's the way I was taught to reach God when I was a boy. I was an altar boy. At times, just to relax, I recite those because I have them memorized, and it makes me feel like I'm connected to God. I don't know why I should be deprived of that. But the church is now going to make a decision and go in one direction or another. What effect, in general, does the Pope have on the rest of Christianity? Because there's a lot of animosity to the Pope, because of history in particular. And then there's also a lot of respect for the Pope. And it's hard to know, when he says something, what does it mean to other Christians?
Well, maybe to your surprise, it is actually a very significant thing. There's about 2.2 billion Christians on the planet, and half of them are Roman Catholic. So that means you've got a tremendous segment of the body of Christ made up of Roman Catholics who fall under the leadership of the Pope out of Rome. And so whenever he makes a decision, makes a statement, there is a massive ripple effect, even upon Protestant churches, ministers. And so, we're all Christians. We're all in this together. And there is animosity Protestants towards the Pope because, this is going back to the Reformation and different things like that. But there's been a great bridge of healing between Protestants and Catholics to where we can actually go out and get along and, not try killing one another. And so that's great progress compared to the past. And so this is huge, though, because, like I said, you got one guy who influences about 1 billion people on the planet. And so this is not just a light decision. This is a major decision. And the Catholic Church, just like the United States of America, had a decision to make in 2024. Are we going to go more to the left, or are we going to come back to our roots? America chose we're going back to our roots. hopefully the Catholic bishops who are making this decision will make the decision, we're going to go back to our roots. Our roots are very conservative in nature, whereas Francis, he opened the door. And like you said, he didn't make same-sex marriage, quote unquote, legal within the Catholic Church, but he opened the door. And you know this, one step away from truth is one step towards a lie. And that's why this is so important, what's getting ready to take place.
Pastor, someone today or the other day argued, it really doesn't matter. It's just one small step. And this idea of opening the door and the effect of that is overdone. Well, I reminded them that that's what they said about Roe against Wade. When Roe against Wade passed, they said, "Oh, just the first. It'll just affect the first 3-4 months. That's it. Nothing more." Well, I said, "Well, that's pretty bad anyway." But they said, "Oh," and then they would go back to ancient law, English law, other law, where there were distinctions made in the first trimester and quicken with child and all this other stuff, trying to argue that it's going to be limited. Now, all of a sudden, we have, slaughtering an 8 or 9 month baby in the womb. And we even have the trickle over effect that we heard of maybe we kill a couple of them after they come out of the womb. Well, that's sure the trickle effect really worked there. I'll tell you that. And when you have people that have designs on why they're doing things, it always works. And the people who are doing this are not doing it just to make this one. They want to go all the way.
Right.
So right. I mean, we got to accept
that they have an agenda, but they can't accomplish their agenda in one fell swoop. Nobody would go for it. You just incrementally chip away, and over time, you move the needle to a place that's unrecognizable from where it began. And so we see that politically. We also see that spiritually. And so, the Catholic Church has got a big thing ahead of it, but it has a ripple effect, not just within the Christian circles. I mean, you got to realize that's 1 billion people being influenced out of 8 billion people on the planet. That's not small. That's massive. And so, as a Protestant, I'm praying that the Catholic Church will make a good decision and come more back to its roots, which are conservative in nature. And that's the beautiful thing. You talk about people, the most pro-life people I know, Mayor, are Catholics. They're the ones who are out, making things happen in regards to fighting abortion on the state level now that it's been put back onto the states. And so our Catholic brothers and sisters, for me as a Protestant, are so important in the fight that we're all in, fighting evil that does not just stop. Evil doesn't just slow down. It has to be checked by leaders. And so whoever the next pope is going to have an opportunity to check evil at the door, just like what President Trump is doing in the White House from a political standpoint. And that's what the Pope of Rome is able to do from a spiritual standpoint, is to put evil in check because of the influence that he has.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. I mean, people who aren't spiritual may not appreciate this, but I think even if you're not, we desperately need to bring God back into America. I often say to people who don't believe in God, you're better off in a world where most people do, even you. And I've gotten people to agree with me on that. I said, even if you don't believe in God, then at least grant that God has a salutary effect on people. It gives people a rationale for being good. And a very solid one. And I think a world that is permeated by religion, even if there are some exceptions and people who don't believe, is a much kinder, much better. I mean, after all, Jesus taught all of us, Protestant, Catholic, Orthodox, that the main thing we had to do in addition to loving him is to love the least of his brethren.
Yep.
How can that be bad? I mean,
no, it's especially when you're on the receiving end of either love or hate from people. And so it's a much better thing when society is inundated with religion, God, Christian principles and teachings. That's why, what made America great in its first place? America was founded as a godly nation. And we're coming back to that, though. It's so exciting to see what President Trump is doing in the White House with the faith office, pastors coming in. America is becoming
faith
God.
office. Did you ever believe you would see a faith office?
I can't.
My
I mean,
goodness, a couple of years ago, they put you in prison if you wanted to have a faith office.
What is the difference in America? Easter 2024 under Joe Biden was Transgender Visibility Day. What a slap in the face to every candidate. Easter 2025 at the White House is Holy Lord. We're going to praise Jesus, and we're going to have pastors up at the White House. I mean, it was just, you talk about a total reversal in just a year. And that's leadership. So the same thing can happen in the Catholic Church as well.
I think in a lot of cities in America, if they did Easter 2024, the police would have raided it as a pornographic show. I mean, it was disgraceful. And here's what I don't get, and I should not be arguing with anyone's faith. I do not understand Joe Biden as a Catholic. I don't get it, much less a Christian. But I don't understand how you can be a Catholic and in favor of slaughtering 7, 8, and 9-month-old babies in the womb. I can understand confusion at earlier stages, although I don't agree with it. But sure. When you get to when the state of New York passed late-term abortion, which was a horrible day, there was a standing ovation for it. That was even more horrible than the fact that they did it. At least do it in sorrow. At least do it in sorrow. My goodness.
Legalize
what disrespect for human life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Joe Biden, I would say this, and maybe I shouldn't say this. He's not a good Catholic if he is a Catholic.
It's not for us to judge, but I mean, we can't have observations in order to help ourselves avoid getting like that.
Under the impression that Joe Biden's not allowed to be served communion by like his own priest or something like that. So that's a big deal. That's not a minor.
It's a big deal. I went through 2 periods of that. So the way the rules are that if in his case, because of his support for the most extreme form of abortion, he's not allowed to have communion. In my case, if you are divorced and the marriage is not annulled, you can be a member of the Catholic Church. You just can't get remarried again.
Right.
And right now I'm not remarried, and so therefore I'm a full-fledged member of the church. And of course, the confession part is personal to me. If I didn't go to confession, I wouldn't be. But the church has very strict rules. So, some of it, sometimes I think, are too strict. My view always was, don't deprive people of communion.
Sure.
That Jesus will help them. For example, the Catholic Church is very strict about not allowing members of other Christian churches, even those that are very close to us, like the Orthodox Church and the Episcopal Church, to have communion. I'm not sure about the Orthodox Church. I'll have to check. I've always thought that was a mistake. I think Jesus wants everybody to come. Now, that's Rudy the theologian, not the Pope. And I guess that would make me kind of a liberal. I do believe that. So I'm not allowed to practice it.
Right. You at one point thought about going into the priesthood, right? If I remember you.
Sure. I've also not anywhere near the complexity you did, but I studied comparative religion. I've gone to services in almost every Protestant denomination. I had 2 good, very, very close teachers and friends who were a Methodist priest and a Presbyterian minister. I love religion. I think it's the core. It's the core of our civilization. It's one of the things Western civilization brought to the world, and it's one of the things that communism wants to most desperately wipe out, and has really.
Yeah,
and we got to bring it back, all of us together, whether we're Jews, Christians, whatever kind of Christians. I was also taught, Reverend, talking about an old Catholic Church, very, very conservative. I was taught that Catholics are not the only people who go to heaven. As a little boy, I was taught that people go to heaven based on their own belief in God and whether they stay true to it, assuming it meets, general moral standards. And every once in a while, the nuns would tease us and say, it's going to be harder for you to get to heaven because you know all the rules. Some of these people don't, so God's going to excuse them better. So I used to have friends that used to like to go to other churches thinking maybe it might be easier for us if we went to another church.
But
I
Lord,
grew up in a very, very accepting, I certainly didn't grow up in a Catholic tradition that took the view that every manner of Protestant and Jew wasn't any holier or less holy than we were. They just had another way of reaching God. Who's to know God's ways?
Well, it's the same way on the Protestant side. There's a lot of Protestant circles that say Catholics are not going to heaven, and which is it's a ridiculous statement. But some Protestants, they have the reverse of what some Catholics have, and and that's just a bitter old rivalry from 500 years ago. But luckily, we've crossed that bridge, recognizing both Catholics and Protestants are both Christians, and we are going to be with each other for eternity.
Gives us a lot more in common than not. I'll tell you, particularly now under siege. You look at the way Christians are being killed all over the world, and they don't distinguish between Catholic and Protestant or evangelical or whatever else you want to call them.
No,
so
they don't care.
Thank you very, very much, Pastor. We've talked politics a lot. We haven't talked theology or religion a lot, and I really do enjoy it, and we'll have you back. Pastor Lahmeyer's church is a fast-growing church. He, as you can see, is a very young man for what he's accomplished. And tell us a little about your church and the new one. You're building a bigger one. Yeah.
So we are here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Sheridan Church, and Mayor, you've been here, and we bought.
My goodness! I was there for Christmas. It was so beautiful.
Yeah, we bought the largest nightclub in Tulsa. We turned it into a church, and we. So now I can't build out, but I can build up, and so we're adding an upper deck of seating because we just ran out of space, which is a good problem to have. We've ran out of space, so great thing. But yeah, from club to church, and that just like come on, we love it, and it's been a great facility, and we always love having you. And in
we'll
Tulsa,
be back.
and it's just
Dr. Maria and I. Dr. Maria and I are actually thinking of moving to Tulsa because of you.
Hey, listen, you come to Tulsa and you will be like absolute royalty. And we might even convince you to run for mayor of Tulsa. That would be absolutely incredible.
Maybe I'll get my friend Rocky to Sylvester Stallone to make it permanent. Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
And give my regards and my love to your wife and your lovely family, who I've gotten to know very well. This is a really exceptional man, and he has quite a future. Reverend Lahmeyer, thank you. Well, we'll take a short break, and we'll be right back.
You're still looking good.
I'm still feeling good. I've got all your MyPillow products. Mattress topper, bed sheets, MyPillows, towels, slippers, blankets.
I'm interrupted this commercial to do something I've never done before. Get 2 MyPillows absolutely free on orders of $100 or more. I can't do this forever, so get on board with this great sale today. Our best-selling 6-piece bath towel sets or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Our famous standard MyPillows, only $14.98. Queens, $18.98. King size, only $1 more. Body pillows, $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color. So go to MyPillow.com or call that number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And when you spend $100 or more, get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free. Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the next generation of energy drinks, Rev 7. It has no sugar and no caffeine. Instead, Rev 7 uses Go BHB. Go BHB is one of the body's primary ketones, and it provides the most efficient and clean fuel that your body needs. It also helps you stay energized all day with no crashes. Not only that, it produces 3 times more brain energy than sugar, which helps boost your memory, focus, and mental sharpness. It also helps reduce stress and helps balance your mood. Rev 7 does all that while being the best tasting energy drink ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% today. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7. For a limited time, you get our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. I drink Rev 7 every day and I absolutely love it, and so will you. If you want to feel and look your best, you need to check out Pure Health Research. They have 45 premium health supplements that are designed to help you with everyday health goals. Whether it's boosting your energy or trimming belly fat, supporting healthy blood sugar, pumping your testosterone up, or even reducing swelling in your legs, Pure Health Research Supplement Store has you covered. Each formula is crafted with natural, non-GMO ingredients, backed by clinical research and manufactured right here in the USA. And here's the best part. Pure Health Research is offering you an exclusive 35% discount. Just go to purehealthresearch.com and use promo code Lindell at checkout. With their 365-day money-back guarantee, there's nothing to lose. So head over to purehealthresearch.com now, explore their 45 amazing supplements, and save 35% before this deal ends with promo code Lindell.
This is Rudy Giuliani back with the Rudy Giuliani Show on Lindell TV and X. I hope you enjoyed the interview with the great Reverend. I mean, he is a close friend of mine and someone I admire immensely. And we're going to eventually put these two together. I did an interview before, which is going to be part of a podcast with Monsignor Alan Plaka, who is a extraordinarily well-educated and brilliant Roman Catholic Monsignor. And I'm going to try to put the two together, and we'll put them out as a special podcast. And during the course of this, I hope to get the two of them together. Maybe we'll find ourselves, I mean, I have some very good friends who are rabbis too, so maybe we'll make it a 3-way, huh? I mean, religion is religion, and it's getting the hell kicked out of it all over the world. And there's a reason that it is the number one priority for Marxists to knock God out. Okay. I'm just, before we move on from the issue of the Pope, you know that the conclave will begin on May 7. Between then and now, there will be a great deal of meetings between the various electors, the popes, and they'll also be cardinals, and they'll also be able to have conversations with the other cardinals, 100 plus of those who cannot vote because they're over 80, but they could be selected Pope. And there's some wisdom to selecting an old pope. If you're not sure of the direction, if you're not sure what's going to work right, you go for a short papacy with a good man to test it out, right? Not unheard of, happened in the history of the papacy. In fact, that probably happens more often than not. The average term of a pope is 7 years. Not some of the young ones here who are 65 and 70, who could be 15 years or 20. So I just thought it would be fun before we get off the topic, and probably sacrilegious. So there's Monsignor Plaka is gone and Reverend Lahmeyer is gone, so I can do this now. Polymarket has given the best chance of being elected. Now, if you want to look up here, I don't have all of them, but I have. We'll get the Polymarket scorecard at some point and see what it says. But the number one is at a 29%. That's this gentleman right here. That is Cardinal Parolin, and I think he's 75. I think. Next in order is the most liberal, left wing, as you define it in the church, and that would be Antonio Tagle, right here. Now, he's in his 60s, mid 60s, which very much, I think, makes him too young. Maybe too much on one side. Paroline's biggest offense to us that tend to be more traditional, and in my case, not sometimes traditional, sometimes not, but certainly very strong on Red China. He made the deal with Red China that allows, this is Paroline, I'm sorry. This is Paroline. He made the deal with China, which Tagle agreed with, to allow them to have a say in the selection of cardinals and bishops. I don't understand that. As a Catholic who was brought up with the danger of communism drilled into me from every priest, brother, nun, and parent, and I don't understand this. Or studying Our Lady of Fatima, I don't understand this. Compromising with atheistic communists who kill Catholics left and right. I mean, China has slaughtered so many Catholics and other Christians. But I would want to have, if I were making this choice, one hell of an explanation from Paroline, and I would disqualify Tagle. He's also too young. To have a left-winger like that in charge of the church, we might not have a church left after. Number 3 on the list is Matteo Zuppi. I am not sure who he is. I am sure he is a very close associate of Francis, and yet again, very, 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 very progressive. It might be him right here, but don't hold me to it. And then at 6%, at 11% is Pier Battista Pizzaballa. That's this gentleman here with a lovely smile. He's the Patriarch of Jerusalem, who offered himself in exchange for the hostages, and has a very, very close relationship at a very core part of the world. Much like John, Pope John II had with Russia and Poland in Jerusalem. But again, I believe he's only 65, so that would be a long, long papacy. And the other here is Cardinal Erdo from Hungary. And Cardinal Erdo has only a 4% chance. And Cardinal Sarah has a 5% chance. And I would say Cardinal Sarah is the conservative traditionalist favorite. So that's it. That's the group. So what we should do as we get ready for the conclave is each day we'll bring you a few more facts, and then we'll do a special or two which you can consult, separately, so you have some background for how to view all this and see which way it's going. Since we are on matters of religion, I should tell you that New York State is considering an assisted suicide bill, which would allow people to kill themselves because they're not happy. It would be, again, another move toward a completely atheistic, amoral, life is not very valuable world, which is, of course, the desire of the communists among us, and brings us closer to the Chinese one world communism. There was a letter to the editor arguing against the New York Post editorial, saying that assisted suicide will be a slippery slope. And the executive director of End of Life Choices, sounds like a kind of ghoulish position, is David Levin. He writes, "Your editorial on medical aid in dying Arguing that there will be a slippery slope is wrong. Mr. Levin, you do not know what you're talking about. You are ahistorical and ignorant of history and a very, very poor observer of human conduct. May I remind you that Roe against Wade began with, very limited abortions, very, very few, only if necessary, very sad, very terrible, first 3 months. And just a few years ago in the New York legislature, they approved abortion. How about murder of a 7, 8, and 9 month fetus? And also left a little wiggle room, as they did in Minnesota, for a little bit of killing after the baby was born. So much so for slippery slope, huh? You don't know what you're talking about. And maybe you are, maybe you're not, but you have no idea of the evil intent behind assisted suicide. Again, a very, very big and important part of communism and Marxism, where God didn't create you, you did. You created yourself. I'd like to know how you did that. So you have a right to take your life anytime you want. It's the reason, starting with Roe against Wade, that life, which was up here in Western civilization, has been eroded to down here, which is what the communists want. And it's why we have so much killing. The idea of killing should be beyond anything human beings think, unless, God forbid, it's in true self-defense. The polls now put out, if you can believe them, I'm not sure I do, show Trump in some degree of trouble. He was doing very, very well at the beginning, had high numbers, high approval numbers, and his approval numbers have had a dramatic drop, according to recent surveys from CBS, ABC, the Washington Post, NBC, CNN, and the New York Times. I can't believe any one of them. I can't believe any one of them. And they have him they have him underwater on tariffs. 42% of Americans strongly disapprove of Trump's job performance. Only 26% strongly approve. That was NBC. CBS overall approval rating was at 45%, which is a little bit better. Siena College, New York Times, 42%, and CNN at 41%. But those are the lowest 100-day markers since at least President Eisenhower in 1953. And it seems to be the tariff. It seems to be the tariff. His economic numbers are only 2% higher than Biden's were this time in Biden's presidency. So what do we make of all this? So let's first of all say we can't be sure that they're valid. I had expected something like this at this stage of his presidency. After all, I mean, every time he ran, he was 5 to 10 points ahead, or they were 5 or 10 points behind him. Why are they going to do any different now? But in any event, I do think that they are helpful in saying that some, redirection is necessary, which is what we are going to get into at 8 o'clock. Of course, it already has Senator John Ossoff, who I didn't even know who the hell he was. Tell me where Senator John Ossoff comes from.
Georgia.
Wow, a star for Ted.
Nice, I'll take it.
Give him a star. Little Sister Mary's going to give him a white star. John Ossoff wants to impeach him.
Wow.
He hasn't figured out why yet, but he wants to impeach him. Wants to impeach Trump. I think it's because he threw out the wife beater MS-13 animal, who he wants back, and I think Ossoff has offered to take him in his house, like the judge did. I think he has. This is also the ridiculousness of Georgia politics. How does a jerk off like this become a senator in Georgia?
Right.
I mean, I can't figure it out. I can't. But
So he's cheating.
and I think that the president's view, of course, on the Fed did hurt because the Fed has taken on this sacrosanct position that it's apolitical. It's nothing if it's not political. His candidate, the president's candidate, Kevin Warsh, to serve, who was a governor and probably is going to be the next head of the Fed after this political guy goes. I mean, this guy just sucked up to Biden 100%, including ridiculous damage to our economy in never raising interest rates. So he created more and more inflation. If you want to know the cause of inflation, which is yet to be affected by tariffs, the tariffs aren't in effect. The cause of inflation is Biden and jerk-off Powell. And the problem with Powell is, I mean, this goes back to quantitative easing in 2008. He created a false economy for us. The man single-handedly has undercut the American economy, and the president can do nothing about it. Now, practically, the president could. So there's this argument that we've outlined for you numerous times. The Supreme Court's going to decide this year. And that is, can there be branches of government that are considered part of the executive branch, and the people cannot be removed at will by the president? Everything in the Constitutional Convention and the Constitution, in the structure of the Constitution, which does put some limitations on appointments by the executive, but none on dismissal, which was specifically discussed by the Constitutional Convention, says that these are extra constitutional bodies. They are unconstitutional. The problem is the court seems ready to decide that with what might be regarded as less politically supported institutions like the FTC and the FCC and the Interstate Commerce Commission. And they seem ready to say, yeah, president can dismiss anyone from there. Otherwise, it's not an executive branch of government. They've done a lot with the discretionary rules to curtail that fourth branch of government, really created originally by Wilson, and then in a sort of bitter decision by a Republican court to stymie Roosevelt, created these ABC agencies that are nothing constitutionally. Now, we've been cutting back on them over the last 20 years, and they're ready to drop. But there's so much political fear and economic fear and misunderstanding around the Fed that if that one were presented to the Supreme Court as the test case, the fear is a couple of our justices who are well known for getting extremely nervous in certain parts of their body would get very, very nervous and maybe find some kind of as they have in the past, intellectually dishonest way of avoiding the question. Not so with the less controversial agencies. So let's be patient. We got a year plus to put up with this politician. And at the meantime, it only does affect a certain portion of the economy. We have some things coming up that really will dwarf it. For example, the bill, the big, beautiful bill, is the big, beautiful bill will, within months after passing, really, really rejuvenate our economy. Of course, number one, it'll make the tax reductions stable, so businesses can plan, and they don't have to sit around and worry about. They don't have to sit around and worry about what might happen if the tax cuts aren't renewed at the end of the year. Once those tax cuts are put into effect, you're probably not going to see the same bounce you got last time because they were new. But you're going to see about half that bounce. And that's all you need, because we are getting a bounce. We don't realize it from the reduction in regulations. And we're going to get a major bounce from the infusion of money, which is at a scale, could be historic. What I'm talking about are all these companies, and there are so many of them now that it's hard to keep track of them. But I mean, it started with the Taiwan company, the largest super chip manufacturer in the world, and they have put $1 trillion in. That's boom. This isn't like printed money, like Powell was doing, that devalues. This is real money that increases value. Now, they're not the only ones. We've got 5, 6 car manufacturers that have invested. We have countries that have pledged investments, like Vietnam. I don't know how much of that has come across the finish line, how much of it is planned. We're going to try to take the time to see if we can find a study of that. But it's certainly having an impact on our economy. And when recognized completely, will have a drastic impact on the economy that will dwarf anything that has to do with tariffs, which, by the way, are largely not in effect. Maybe the tariff with China is in effect. None of the others. The others are all put off. So we can't be hurt by tariffs right now. It's in our head. And we don't say to ourselves, gee, can we reduce some of that fear by the 5 companies that said, we're going to build cars in America because we want to avoid the tariff. Want to put that on the side of the tariff worked? So I am not worried in terms of the tariff. It may be causing a momentary drop in some of the poll numbers, not what people say, but that's going to be restored. I am more worried, and we'll spend a little more time on that at 8 o'clock when you go over to X. I am more worried about Ukraine and Iran and the combination of both, because I think that much more decisive action than we have so far shown ourselves willing to use is going to be necessary to reverse the terrible effect of Iran so that peace is possible in the Middle East, and to impress China that they're not going to be controlling the world. It's one thing to build up our military, and, Trump is adding $1 trillion ultimately to that. And that's terrific. That's peace through strength. But the most important part of peace through strength is they have to believe you will use that strength and not be so reluctant to do it that you use it at the last minute when it may be too late. No one ever doubted that about Ronald Reagan. They certainly knew that he wasn't going to use it irresponsibly. President Trump has certainly demonstrated that. But the more you delay, the more you play Biden no troops on the ground, the more you dissipate that fear. And then if it isn't activated and it isn't used, then you're in a terrible situation with regard to China's designs on a one world controlled by China. So this becomes extraordinarily important. And if you would now go over to X, we'll take you through those first 100 days, as we said, in a little more detail, and we'll also bring you up to date on all the things that have happened with aliens this week, which are really remarkable, including judges harboring criminals and people defending it. I don't know, I think if there were a murder in cold blood in the middle of, well, I guess there was Mangione, the liberals would defend it. Well, thank you again to the Reverend Lahmeyer for elevating our show with your beautiful words. explaining religion and God. And pray, please, for the people of Ukraine and who are waiting so much for peace, and the people of Israel that deserve to be lifted from the fear of destruction by Iran, and the people of Iran who deserve to be free. And pray that you guide our president to make the right decisions. God bless America.